the age of 17, I have already been through so much. 10 PET scans, 10 cycles of chemotherapy, 9 hospital admissions, 7 surgeries, 5 biopsies, 2 lung function tests, 2 failed lines of chemotherapy, 1 relapse, 1 stem cell transplant, countless blood transfusions, blood tests, pee tests, poop tests, ultrasounds, x-rays, scans, and so much more. Hello, my name is Megan Reed. I'm currently in year 12, and this is my cancer story. I was once just like most of you. I was healthy and had no worries of what the results of my next scan would be or if the chemotherapy was working. I was a cheerleader about to go on an amazing trip with my cheerleading club to compete at NCA, a huge cheerleading competition in America. I was even moved up a level for this trip, which is rare since the club was to have the most experienced athletes of the level on the teams. I was also in year 10 and looking forward to all the things that come with senior schooling. But then at the end of November 2019, my life was changed forever. In mid-November, I went to see my doctor about a lump that was on my neck and that had been there for a while. She immediately sent me to have a blood test, ultrasound, and a needle core biopsy. These were the first of many tests that it took before I got my official diagnosis. When we went to get the results of the biopsy, we were told that they had come back inconclusive. That was the first of many inconclusive biopsy results. My doctor then referred me to an ENT who performed my first surgical biopsy, which again came back inconclusive. But it did tell us one very important thing. It was definitely cancer, specifically a lymphoma. This was enough for my doctor to be able to refer me to an oncologist at Queensland Children's Hospital. At my first appointment at the hospital, I remember seeing oncology all over the walls, and I had no idea what it actually meant, so I looked it up. It said that oncology is the study of cancer. This was the moment that all of this really started to become real. My oncologist ended up sending me to have 2 more surgical biopsies before we finally got a conclusive one. At the end of November 2019, I was diagnosed with Stage 2 AE classical Hodgkin's lymphoma. I then endured 5 cycles of chemotherapy with little complications. I did end up having a 5th cycle when I was only meant to have 4. This was because I had this little tiny spot lighting up on one of my last scans, and we decided to do an extra cycle of chemo to make sure it definitely went away. I reached remission and finished treatment on the 30th of April 2020. From the time of my 3-month scans, I started to advocate and open up about my fight with cancer. This is also when I finally got to ring the end of treatment bell. It felt amazing to finally ring it. I started TikTok, where I currently have over 125,000 followers. On TikTok, I share my story, raise awareness for childhood cancer, and educate on what it's like to have cancer. I then, in September 2020, participated in CureFest, where I walked with people from all over the world to raise awareness for childhood cancer. I then, in October 2020, participated in Leukemia Foundation's Light the Night to shine a light on blood cancer, where I raised over $3,000. On the 30th of October 2020, I had my 6-month scans. Unfortunately, these scans showed that my cancer had relapsed. I then had a core biopsy of the cancer in my chest to verify that it was still Hodgkin's lymphoma, which it was. I then went through the process of having my eggs collected to preserve my fertility, while my oncologist came up with a planned treatment. We ended up collecting 19 eggs, which is more than we thought we would. The day after passing my driving test and getting my Ps, I started chemotherapy for the 2nd time. I endured 2 cycles of brentuximab and bendamustine. These drugs made me sicker than anything I had previously had. We also attempted to collect my stem cells so so I would be able to have an autologous stem cell transplant at the end of my treatment. However, this attempt failed. During my second cycle of this chemo, I also ended up having an anaphylactic reaction to the drug brentuximab. Then, after these 2 cycles of chemotherapy, there was no change in my scan, meaning that my first line of salvage chemotherapy had failed. Before starting my new chemotherapy, we attempted another stem cell collection, which also failed. I then started my second line of salvage chemotherapy, which was AGAV with rituximab. After the first cycle of this chemo, I had a scan to check if it was working, and it was. There was massive reduction. We also did another stem cell collection, and this time it finally worked. We collected my stem cells. We even ended up with more than what I needed. After 2 cycles, I was meant to have a clear scan, but it wasn't. However, the chemo was still working, so we decided to do another cycle. The next scan that I had showed that I had stopped responding to this chemo. If anything, it was slightly worse than the last scan. We then made the decision to do an allogeneic stem cell transplant instead of an autologous. Oncologist feels this is more likely to get me into remission. The difference between these types of stem cell transplants is that the autologous, your own stem cells are used, and with an allogeneic, donor's stem cells are used. I was lucky enough for my little sister, Erin, to be a 100% match. Admitted to hospital on the 9th of April, and then on the 10th of April, my conditioning for my stem cell transplant started. The conditioning before my stem cell transplant involved the chemotherapy protocol BEAM with Campath. The 6 days of chemo went quite smoothly, and I did not experience many side effects. Erin also went through her stem cell collection during this time. On the 16th of April, I received my new cells. This is now my rebirth day, so pretty much I now have 2 birthdays. After my stem cell transplant is when all of the chemotherapy side effects started. I was very nauseous, in pain, had painful mucositis, which is lots of really painful mouth ulcers that were in my mouth, throat, digestive tract, stomach, and so on. And just overall, I felt terrible. Since I haven't been able to eat or drink due to the mucositis, I have been receiving IV nutrition. I am also connected to a PCA, which gives me continuous fentanyl, a pain medication, and I can bolus it when I need some extra pain relief. I also made the choice of getting a nasogastric tube, also known as a feeding tube. Swallowing is quite painful. Today is day +13 since my stem cell transplant. I am feeling better than I was, but still not great. I have been in hospital for about 3 weeks, and I can't wait to go home, but I still have to be here for another 2 to 3 weeks. As you can probably tell, I'm being quite sick of the hospital, but I still have plenty of activities to do. But anyways, thank you guys for listening and watching my story. Bye!